Alright, hello. This is the updated ranking for the Villainous game. So, this is obviously all in my opinion. So this is going to be an update video because of the new expansion. So, um, here's how I had them before. This one being the easiest, this one being the hardest, and then just go uh, across like that. So, um, yeah, I'll link the other video below. If you want to watch that one first, that one's the one where I kind of go into a little bit more detail about why these got their places. But for this video, I don't feel like basically copying the other video and then adding 3 more in. I'll just summarize these, and then I'll put the 3 new ones into it. So, yeah, if you want to get more background on why these are in their places, you can go to the other video. Or if you don't really care and you just want to get to this, you can just keep watching. So, yeah. I put Dr. Facilier first because he can win turn 3. He has like 3 cards that he needs to win, and if you get them all in your starting hand like I have before, you play them one after the other in succeeding turns, and then next thing you know, you're winning turn 3 before anyone else could even start their objective. Prince John is really easy. He just has a lot of, you just got to gain power. Every time my group plays him, he has no issue getting power. So he's just a really easy one. Radigan's very easy because he has one card, I think it's like the airship or something. It basically takes the robot queen from the first location all the way to the last location, so you don't even have to spend turns moving the robot queen down to get to the end. You can just activate that ability and just put it at the end, which to me is incredibly overpowered and makes him very, very easy to play, because you can do that right away if you have the cards. Queen of Hearts, very simple. You really have to worry about like getting all of the card guards out. Once you have all the card guards out, it basically becomes just making sure that you have enough wickets, enough strength in your wickets to take the shot, which 9 times out of 10 you do have enough. So we have no problem winning as her. Captain Hook is very, he's somewhat easy. He's really straightforward, really. You just get a lot of villains that have like an easier objective in this game. Captain Hook is one of them. He's really simple because you just unlock a location, have Peter Pan get there, then you move him down and then vanquish, which over the course of the game you're loading up that Jolly Roger with a ton of allies to vanquish. And while, you get fated and your fate can actually mess things up, he has no problem bouncing back because of how he plays. He has so many allies, you can just dig and find more allies after you spend some to vanquish. Evil Queen is a very somewhat easy villain. She tends to be a more rough one to play as, only because you get some fate cards that could actually mess up your poison and mess up your ingredients, which can be a pain, but those are really easy to get around, and poison is so easy to come by because you just get power and then you turn power into poison, that she really has no problems with winning. Maleficent, very kind of average. She is someone who's very whose fate deck is very hurtful. Her fate deck could actually, most of the cards in the fate deck do something to her curses, and when those curses are gone or disrupted, she basically can't win. So That's a very important thing to keep in mind. So she's like kind of towards the center because of um, how difficult it can be to hold all 4 of your curses. All right, Pete. Pete's someone who's very well. He's like dead center in the list. That's because his objectives can be a pain, and they can also be quite easy sometimes. Like your play a game objective is very easy because you can just get that done in one turn. Meanwhile, the other ones take a lot of planning, like putting 3 items that all have to be played in different locations and moving them all to one location, and that location has to be where that token is. So it can be very difficult sometimes, especially when you have your fate deck taking um, your wins away because you either can't move items or allies, you can't even complete objectives, and sometimes they discard some of the cards you actually need. So he's right in the middle. Mother Gothel's next. Mother Gothel is a very, well, I wouldn't say very difficult, but she's a difficult villain to play as, and that's because she happens to have a lot of fate decks that manipulate Rapunzel in a bad way, that either move her forward or take away trust. So she can be a pain, especially when you don't have the brush. Basically, if you don't have the brush, she becomes almost impossible to win as, only because the brush is the only thing that gives you consistent power, and the other cards are all situation based, and sometimes takes a lot of planning and gets very difficult to be that detailed and be that planned. Cruella de Vil's another one. She's very difficult. Well, she's not very difficult. She's just difficult because she has a lot of fate cards that take away her puppy tokens. And getting 99 puppies is also a very, very difficult task to complete, only because it can be very slow to do. And being slow when you're playing against other villains like Dr. Facilier, Queen of Hearts, or Ratigan can be a pain. Ursula is a difficult villain. She has a lot of issues, I would say, with her fate deck. Her fate deck does manipulate a lot of things. Like, one allows you to shuffle your discard pile and your draw pile back together, which if you haven't found the crown or the trident yet, and you've discarded through 75% of your deck, and they get shuffled back together, I would just consider it a loss, only because it's so much you have to siphon through to get those cards out. But yeah, I mean, there's strategies where you lock people at a certain location, or you lock the trident and the crown at a location so that you can't lose, which makes sense, but getting all that there can be a pain. Jafar is just a lot to do. You have to unlock the last location, play the lamp, and then get the genie out, and then move the lamp all the way down, as well as hypnotizing the genie and bringing him to your side. His objective takes a ton of power, so 99% of the time I find myself power hungry, because I don't have enough to do what I need to do. So I actually have to spend turns as him gaining power instead of actually trying to forward with my objective. So he can be a very difficult villain. Hades is another difficult one, only because his objective takes a while. You have to play 3 titans and then move each titan 3 locations away to the Mount Olympus, which can be a pain, because assuming that you have everything that you need, it can take up to 9 turns to move them all down. And then there's also fate cards that, once you start getting closer, are going to actually start putting you back and setting you back up to maybe even 4 turns. So he's a difficult one. Yuzma's just very slow. You have a lot of decks you have to search to find Cusco, and if you don't find Cusco, then you're pretty much done, because you have, what I find is you have a very limited amount of time to find Cusco, and if you don't find him in that time, your opponents are going to be so far ahead that it basically becomes, they get so far ahead that you basically lose, because by the time that you start catching up, they would already have won. Scar, lastly, Scar is a very, very difficult villain, because he is, because he has so much that he has to do in terms of vanquishing. The Fate deck also likes to pull villains out of your succession pile, which is not good at all. And there's multiple ones of those, so if they pull them out of your succession pile, you're basically back to square one. You have to, getting 15 power in that succession pile can be a great pain. So yeah, that's basically a summary of the other video. The other video actually shows you with cards in their boards exactly what I mean, so if you want to watch that. So here's the 3 new villains: Horn King, Lady Tremaine, and then Gaston. So I'll go into where I put them now, and then I will show you, just like the other video, in detail with their boards and cards, what I mean. Alright, so here's the updated one with the 3 new villains. So the reason why I put them here is will be explained shortly, but I just want to point out that now Gaston is number 8. He's 8th. Lady Tremaine is 9th, and then Horn King, or Lady Tremaine is 10th, and then Horn King is 13th. So yeah, they're not at all up in the top 6. I guess you can consider this this row, with the new expansion, I guess you can consider this one easier, this one more average, and then this one more difficult. So the reason why I put them here will be explained now. Alright, so Gaston's objective is simple. It's just really get all 8 of these obstacles off the board. There's 2 at every location, seen by these little diamonds in there. So the reason why it's average difficulty is because all of these cards can be used to remove those tokens. Some of them more than others. Like this one, you remove 3, which can be really good, essentially, because you have 8. So this can get rid of almost half of the ones you need. Then you have this one to remove obstacles. This one removes an obstacle. This one does to remove 1 obstacle, remove 1 obstacle, remove an obstacle, remove up to 2 from a single location. So if you have 2 in one location, you can remove them both that way. You can do that again, and then you can remove obstacles that way. Now there's cards that replace obstacles, but their power is just really good. You gain 3 power or draw 3 cards, so replacing 1 can be very beneficial, especially when you have so many of these guys. So that's why he's on the easier side, but the part that brings him down difficulty wise is his Fate deck. The Beast basically moves all allies out of his location to another location, which can be a very important thing, especially when you're stacking to vanquish somebody. Cogsworth just adds strength to people. Now this one can be a pain too, because Maurice's Invention is a very strong card. All allies in the same location as Maurice's Invention lose 1 strength. So when played in a location with Cogsworth and the Beast, if they're all together, they can really mess up how many allies it takes for you to vanquish them. That one, It Is You, actually is bad because it replaces 1 from every location if you have it. Yeah. You place an obstacle, replace all obstacles in a single location. So a lot of these fake cards actually undo your work. So he actually has a little bit of trouble winning. So yeah, he's just an average villain difficulty wise. He's not at all terrible, but he's still one that you have to really begin paying attention to. So yeah, that's the difficulty for Gaston. Um, about average, not at all terrible, but not really that good either in terms of difficulty. All right, next we have Lady Tremaine. Lady Tremaine is another one of those villains that has a lot that they have to do, but she's a tad easier than those other ones like Jafar. Lady Tremaine has a pretty good deck, I would say. She has a lot of really important things like Invitation from the King to unlock the last location. It can be very good, especially when you activate that ability. It could also become very helpful. Then Wedding Bells, and then Balgon Drizella, and then the other Balgon. These are essentially kind of what you need to win. All have to be at this last location. You also have lock tokens to basically, when you lock a hero, this thing doesn't happen. So if you lock someone that has here like this, while Gus is in play, all item cards cost +2 power. When he's locked, this just goes away. So Gus basically just becomes a hero that just blocks something and is worth 1. So when you play this, lock on Gus, all items don't cost +2 power anymore. So locks can be very helpful, and they actually make her a little easier because you don't have to worry about certain certain abilities messing you up. So yeah, she plays essentially a lot like Jafar, but her main difference is you don't have to move something from the ballroom all the way down. You can actually you just have to move Balgon Drizella to the ballroom. Ballroom Drizella can be played. She has to be played on Drizella, but Drizella can be played anywhere. So you can play Drizella here and then play Balgon Drizella on her and then move her over 1, instead of having to place the lamp and then move it all the way down. So that makes her much easier. Yes, a lot of people say her Fate deck is very punishing, especially with Balgon Cinderella and then the 2 glass slippers. But the only thing I really have to mention about that is, yeah, Balgon Cinderella is very difficult, and she plays both slippers. For those of you who don't know, the slippers essentially are both the same card, and they both must be played at Cinderella's room, and you can't win the game. So, yeah, it becomes a pain when you have that, when you have them both. But the really thing you have to keep in mind is you have like a card that gets rid of both of these at the same time. You have one card that gets rid of both of these, so you don't have to worry about that. Because Balgon Cinderella can be here, and because of her, none of these can be moved over to the ballroom. So you have to then use a card that allows you to defeat her. So that can be very nice, especially because you have 2 of them. So really, you have nothing to worry about with her. But yeah, so she's just an easier version of Jafar in my opinion, and honestly a bit more fun to play as opposed to Jafar. So yeah, that's why she's not on the easy side. It's really just because her Fate deck can actually mess you up quite a bit, but the reason why she's not all the way at the end is because your deck has a lot of ways to counter the Fate deck, which is a very important thing to keep in mind when discerning how difficult she should be. So yeah, that's my ranking for our Lady Tremaine. And then lastly, we have Horned King. Horned King is the most difficult one out of the expansion for sure, in my opinion. He just has a lot to do, and most times his Fate deck won't let him do it. So essentially you have to claim back Black Cauldron, and you have to activate it to flip it over, and then at the start of your turn, if you have an Ancient Soldiers, you can replace it with a Cauldron-born, which it honestly sounds easier than it is, but you have to have one at every location. You have to have one at every location, which requires you, in each Ancient Soldier is worth 3. So for every time you want to play Cauldron-born, you have to play 3 power here to get him there. And then you have to make sure that you have claimed the Cauldron and then activated it to be on this side, so that at the start of your turn you can pay 2 power to turn this into this. And this has to be from your hand. So this can be a pain, especially when you need 5 power total to get 1 out. So you need 5 every time. A lot of times you can't just do that in rapid succession, so you have to actually be careful. And plus you have to have a Cauldron-born in your hand, which sometimes you don't because your hand gets discarded, because there's, I think, 2 or 3 cards in your Fate pile, Fate card deck, that actually discard your hand and make you draw up to 3 cards, so then you're at a disadvantage. Maybe you had 2 Cauldron-born and 2 of these in your hand, and then they make you discard it. So now you have to actually go back through your deck. Yeah, there's a card that allows you to shuffle them back in, but it's just more of a pain now. But yeah, the Cauldron-born are actually really good when you have them out, because they cost 6 power, or they don't cost 6 power, but they have 6 strength, and they do not get discarded when you vanquish. So if you have a Cauldron-born and there's a hero there, there's no harm to vanquish. It really actually just makes it better for you. But yeah, so he has a million different ways to claim the Black Cauldron. He has a card that just straight up does it. You could also discard a Fate card from his deck. Where is it? The Durnwin. He can discard that easy and gain that, if that's out though, so you have to get Fate in to have that out to then use that. Or you can pull Handwin out of the Fate deck and then vanquish him to claim the Black Cauldron. So that's a very simple thing. There's also Fate cards that flip this over, making him more difficult, because when this is flipped over, when you start your turn, you discard one of these, which basically gets rid of 5 power and one of the Cauldron-born you need. So that can be very difficult to get around if you don't have any ways to activate it back. So yeah, that's why his deck is one of the more difficult ones in my opinion. He has a lot that he has to get around, but a lot of times he doesn't have the right stuff to get around it. So he's definitely not easy, but I feel that once you get the hang of him, you'll end up liking him. So yeah, that's why I chose Horned King to be towards the end in the ranking. It's really only because he has a ton to do, and his Fate deck could actually hurt him really bad. So yeah, that's my difficulty ranking for these 3. If you have any questions or comments that you want to make, go ahead and leave them down below. Just keep in mind that this is my opinion. I'm not saying that it's completely factual, like scientific, like proof that these ones are easier than the others. This is just my opinion, so don't take it the wrong way. If you feel like some of them are easier than others, that's totally fine. I get that other people have their own opinion, but yeah, if you feel like telling me about it, you can in the comments. I don't care. I'll respond to it. So yeah, that's that. I actually, on my Reddit page, I have a thing going on where I go over whose whose guide I should do next. So it's just these three because I want to do one of these. So if you have, if you want to see me do one of them, go ahead. Link in the comments or link in the description to the Reddit page to go vote. Yeah, that's pretty much it for this. Thank you for watching.